Hey everybody, today I'm going to tell you what I think about leadership. In Mark 5:21, it says that Jesus crossed over again in the boat to the other side. Now you may be wondering, what in the world does that have to do with leadership? Have you ever noticed how many times Jesus got in the boat with his men? This was an opportunity for Jesus and his men to get away from all the craziness of ministry. It was only the 12 that got to experience the storm with Jesus. It was only the 12 that got to experience and see Jesus walking on the water. The 12 debriefing the demoniac and the feeding of the 4,000. Undistracted for some serious leadership development. The fifth element of the four fields. I've heard two great examples of leadership this week and one poor example. The first one comes from my son, who's a captain in the Army, and he has some lieutenants under him. And I asked him this morning, what are you learning about leadership? He said, "Oh, Dad, yesterday we got to talk about some of the failures in Iraq and lessons learned from that." And so my son is developing these young lieutenants. What a great leader. And then the second one comes from Bud Abbott. He was recently doing a 4-day intensive, and he noticed this young guy. He was somebody's Timothy, but he wasn't teaching. So instead of Bud teaching the four fields, which he could do better than anybody else, he takes this young guy aside at lunch, trains him up, and after lunch, that guy is pitching the module on the four field. Now that is good leadership. Now an example of poor leadership. Okay, this is my third time recording this, so I don't want to be negative. So instead of giving you a bad example, let me give you one more good example to illustrate some of the things that you should do rather than you shouldn't do. The good example is Carter and Hannah Cox. They moved into a neighborhood that's a little rough, and they're doing it together as a church. And so here's a leader going into tough areas with their people. So that does a few things. Number one, that really encourages the fellow leaders. They're not demoralized by your lack of participation. Number two, it sends a strong message to the flock. It shows them that this is really important. If our leader showed up, then we need to show up. And then lastly, it shows that you are willing to do the tough things that other people are doing as well. You're willing to be a muddy boots general, to go and suffer along with the troops. That is good leadership. I hope this spurs you on as a leader, and I could talk about leadership until the cows come home, and maybe I will.